Hi, is this Richard?
Hi, how are you?
Hey, I recognize this voice. This is Jason Saulnier for an interview with you with musiclegends.ca.
Yeah, great to hear from you. Thank you very much for calling and interviewing me. I appreciate it.
So, Richard, Charred Walls of the Dam, this new album is kicking some serious butt. It's incredible the work you're doing on the drums.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad you like it. I really appreciate that.
So, this album, would you say it was recorded the same way as your last one?
Yeah, I think this one we had a lot better preparation and for me, especially as a drummer, I spent a lot more time working on my parts for this album. I had 2 months of rehearsal every day before I went in the studio to record my parts, and that's one of the reasons why I was able to get all my drum parts done in just 2 days for this album. Everything went really, really smooth, and I also recently, in the last year and a half, I've lost a lot of weight. I started eating healthy and started, running a lot and exercising more, and it really improved my drumming. So I think, for me as a drummer for this album, I'm really proud of my performance, and I think it's much better than the first album. And overall, everything went really smooth on this album compared to the first. I mean, the first one went smooth as well, but this one we did 12 songs in a very short amount of time, and Tim Owens did all his vocals in 6 days. He did 2 songs a day. That includes harmonies, melodies, everything, which is amazing. So the recording process, I think, for the second album, it went so smooth and so quickly that I think we got a really good live sound for this album. A lot of people have said it sounds like, if we saw you playing live, this is what it would sound like, and that's true because I think we got a very live sound. We didn't, kind of spend too much time making sure everything was perfect. It's a little rough around the edges, and I like that.
Let's say like a song like Zero Span, when you're playing those drum tracks, do you do them in one take mostly? Or how many times did it take you to get that super speed perfectly?
Well, what we usually did is I would just play the song straight through about 3 or 4 times, and then we'd just pick the best one out of that. So, the songs are pretty much one take straight through, and but there were some takes that were better than others. Like sometimes I'd have a cool idea that I liked the second time better than the first time, so we'd keep that take. But yeah, pretty much all the songs. I was lucky enough to be able to rehearse all the songs for 2 months straight, pretty much every day here in New York, and so I was really well prepared. And even if there were little tiny things, little mistakes that were in there, like if you hear a stick click or something, I would leave it because it just it sounds real, and that's how it's supposed to sound. So. Yeah, everything wasn't on the very first take, but the songs are all pretty much one take straight through.
You say, compared to your days in debt, nicer, this is your fastest ever?
It's hard to say. With the Death album, there's some really fast stuff on the Death album, even though, it's not like blast beats, but there's really some fast stuff on the Death album that I played on, and also on the Iced Earth, like on the Horror Show album with the song Wolf. There's some really fast double bass. I think that's probably about the fastest double bass I've ever played. But also with my band Burning Inside, I played a lot of really, really fast blast beats and things like that. And so it's hard to say. I mean, I'm happy that at my age, I'm a little older now, that I can still play pretty fast. And I don't know that this is the fastest I've ever played, but I think it's about the tightest I've ever played, and about the most well rehearsed I've been as far as recording an album. And I'm really, really proud of the drumming on this album.
Now, Richard, what's your take on, let's say, practicing on a drum kit, a real one acoustic, compared to electronic drum set? Like in New York, in your apartment, I'm sure you can't just bring a real acoustic drum set.
Yeah, well, for a long time I had an electronic kit in my apartment. 3 or 4 years ago I did, and it just never felt right. I could never hit it as hard as I wanted to because I was afraid it would break. You know, electronic drums are definitely not cheap, and I was always nervous I was going to break them. So it just didn't feel right. I mean, it's okay for recording demos, and if you want to record and get a good sound, you know, from recording in your apartment or something, it's okay. But nothing beats practicing on an actual acoustic drum set. So, you know, I practiced electronically for a few months, and it just never felt right. So I now, you know, for the past several years, I rehearse at a drumming school called the Drummers Collective in Manhattan, and they have tons of drum kits there, really nice drum kits, and it just, you know, that's the way I learn, and that's the best feel for me. You can't replace an acoustic drum kit, you know, it just feels right, and plus you can pound the heck out of them, and I like to hit really hard, so it just feels much better for me.
Now, Richard, when is the Charred Walls of the Dam ever going to play on the Howard Stern Show?
Well, you know, Howard has played our music on the CD. I don't know that we'll ever play live. Howard's not much of a metalhead. He's not really into the heavy music as much as I am. So I don't know that we will play. I would love to, but you know, it's his show, and that's totally up to him. And you know, maybe one day. But I understand that it's, you know, we are very heavy, and we kind of have, I guess you could say, a limited fan base, and so I don't know that we'd be the right fit for the show, and I understand that, and I'm honored and excited that he plays our music on the air, that he played our debut CD on the day it came out, and he played the new CD on the day it came out as well. So I'm very excited about that and honored that he plays our music.
But I'm sure too, with the Howard Stern Show, it brought fans, new fans, let's say, that didn't know you were in Death or I Stirred, correct?
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm really excited to be able to let people know about those bands. You know, to be able to let millions of people know that about the band Death and Iced Earth and Charred Walls of the Dam. It's really amazing, and a lot of fans email me and say that, you know, they've discovered bands that I talked about on the show, like Death and Iced Earth, and even bands like Cannibal Corpse and Amon Amarth and stuff like that. Like I've been lucky enough to be able to get a lot of metal played on the Stern Show, and it's always cool when fans of the Stern Show email me and say, hey, I was never really into real heavy music before, but I heard your band, or I heard that you played in Death, and I checked them out, and I really like them, and so that's cool. I mean, I have a very unique opportunity to be able to expose people to metal, and I'm really thankful for that.
And I'm sure Chuck Schuldiner would be proud of that as well.
Oh, definitely. Well, even, you know, when I was in Death, I remember I mailed the Death CD to the Stern Show, and they played it coming out of a commercial several times. They were playing Death's music, and I played it for Chuck, and he thought that was, like, really awesome and amazing. And so, yeah, I know Chuck would be really, really happy that I'm able to talk about Death and to get Death music played on the Stern Show now, because he knew that I was a huge fan even back then, and I've been a Stern fan for a very long time, and Chuck used to listen also, and Chuck was really, he got a kick out of it when Howard would play Death on the air even back in the 90s, and so yeah, it's really cool now that I'm actually a part of that show, and it's really an honor.
Let's say going back, you know, in the days of Death, how did Chuck discover you, let's say?
Well, it was through mutual friends, and I'm really, really lucky. You know, that's usually how things work, is you just you know, especially with the metal scene, you have friends that know friends, and it was just through friends of a friend, and there was a band called Wicked Ways in Orlando, and Rick Renstrom and B.C. Richards were two members of that band, and they were friends with Chuck, and I was also friends with them. And when I found out that Chuck was looking for a drummer, I just told them, I said, hey, I'd love to audition, and they passed on my info to Chuck, and I called Chuck one day and auditioned for the band, and I actually auditioned about 2 or 3 different times before he decided to have me in the band. And so yeah, it's all, you know, it's big thanks to Rick and BC, my friends in Orlando, and you know, I had met Chuck at a few parties in Orlando before I was in the band. He was just a super, super nice guy, and I remember telling him that I would always practice along to the Death Human album, and I don't know if he believed me or not, and I would tell him I'd play it at the whole album every day. And then when I finally got to audition and I actually played almost that whole album, jammed it with him, it was really cool, and he knew I wasn't just, joking around, that I actually had been practicing to that album since it came out.
Wow, to play that album, Human, certainly the first track. It's
Yeah,
pretty
that's a
tight
tough
playing.
album to play, and as soon as when that album came out, when I heard it, I was blown away, and I was, that's when Death became my favorite band, and Sean Reinert's a huge influence on me, and so is Gene Hoglan, and pretty much every Death album that Sean and Gene played on, I would practice to every day. So luckily, that was my favorite band, and I was very prepared when I got to audition for the band.
That would have been your first huge band, and that would have put you, not universal, but international, let's say, with all the fans around the world. They would have known your name by then.
Yeah, I mean, when I remember telling because all my friends back home where I lived in Kansas and Missouri, they were big fans of Death as well, and I remember telling them that I was auditioning for Death, and they couldn't believe it. They didn't even believe me, because that's, they're such a legendary band. And then, yeah, that's the reason that you're interviewing me now, and the reason that anybody even knows me in the metal world is because of joining Death, and because of Chuck, and also even getting to be in Iced Earth is from me being in Death, because I got to meet Jim Morris, and Jim Morris was one of the people that got me the audition for Iced Earth. So, I can pretty much trace all my metal career back to Death.
And what is great now is the people you play with. You're playing with Steve, the bass player of Death, on Human album, and Tim Ripper Owens, Judas Priest.
Mhm.
You must be very happy and blessed to feel this when you wake up in the morning and saying, wow, I'm playing with these guys now.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Oh, totally, yeah, because I've been a huge fan of Steve's bass playing, from way back in the Sadist days, and especially when Individual Thought Patterns came out. His bass playing, just, I couldn't believe that somebody could play like that. And yeah, to have him in my band now is really, it's such an honor, and it's so cool. And we've been friends for a very long time, since the 90s. And same with Tim. When Tim joined Iced Earth, we became very good friends, and that's one of the reasons I chose all the guys that are in my band, is because we're, not only are they amazing musicians, but they're also very good friends of mine, and they're really cool guys to hang out with. So, I'm very lucky. And also Jason Sukoff is just an amazing, incredible musician, and I've been a fan of his playing since I first met him in 1999, and him and I have been like really, really close friends since 1999, and he knew Chuck as well, and he used to record some of the Control Denied demos and things like that. So, Jason also has a history with Chuck and with Death, and Jason has known Steve DiGiorgio for a long time, and Tim and Jason are now very good friends from being in this band together, and so it's really cool. It's, to me, it's just as important to be friends with the guys that you're in a band with as well as them being, great musicians.
Just to finish off here, we're going to be seeing one album per year, it seems now, from a Charred Walls of the Dam.
Well, I really hope so. I don't know. Right now we're setting up some tours and some shows for next year with Charred Walls. So if we get very busy doing shows and things like that, then we might not be able to release an album next year, but definitely, if not in 2012, definitely in 2013. Because that's how bands used to do it in the 70s. A lot of bands would put out an album a year, and sometimes even 2 albums a year. And I always thought that was really cool. And I want to keep that momentum going. I want to let people know that this is a real band, that we're not just going to do one album and stop, that we're going to be around for a long time. And I'm glad that we were able to get this album out, the next year after the debut, because now people definitely know that we're a serious band, and that we're somebody that's going to be around for a long time, and we'll be putting out a lot more albums.
Excellent stuff, Richard. Been a real pleasure talking to you, and keep up the great work with everything you do. Certainly, the Howard Stern Show, you make everybody laugh. That's great, and the drumming, just incredible. Keeps on going.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It is such an honor to hear you say that, and it was great talking to you. I really appreciate this. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much, and take care.
You too. Have a good one.
Okay, you too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.